And really, the aim of the podcast is authenticity, mental well being. So, as much as I want to talk about you and the tour and what you have going on, for me, this is about being a dad and balancing schedules. And how do we have the tenacity to get up and keep doing it day in and day out when there's so many hiccups and hardships and hurdles along the way? So, that's kind of the vibe in terms of my family's legacy. My grandfather founded SOCAN, so he merged the two societies at the time and was very much like by the artist for the artist. And then my mom ran a couple different labels, including CBC Music. So like music's in my blood and I'm so addicted to it. And the pop culture piece is apt, and that's why we're talking.
Yeah, nice. That all sounds good. All those things are of interest to me. I think your grandfather owes me some money from SOCAN. I haven't gotten a check in a few years, but we'll deal with that later.
He unfortunately is not with us and hasn't been for a while. So whoever else is running it, that's
Well,
their problem.
I think I'll sue his estate. So clearly it's you. You'll be getting a cease and desist letter by the end of this podcast.
I'm okay with that. Whatever you have to do that's right for you, I'm okay with.
Yeah.
So why don't we just dive in if that's cool with you? And
Sure.
I had a broader question to start with today, which was, I mean, you're a writer, actor, comedian, musician, the list goes on. Is there an artistic median that you see as your go-to or that represents you above all else?
Yeah, I think, I love directing. I love, I'm doing a lot of producing TV shows or help people. The Tall Boys, a show I did, a young BIPOC sketch show. I love all that stuff. I love partnering with people. But the thing that I started doing, it's the most impactful to me and to, I think, my audience, even though it's live shows. It's connecting with people, um, communing with them, all these people who have either never heard of me or known me for many years.
Mhm.
That is the most important thing I think I can do now, which is get my ideas out there especially as we call in these troubled times.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important. Like, I don't say I'm important, but the concept of that, of being together, talking about the world, I think is really important.
That's awesome. I was thinking about this chat, and as I was putting together notes, trying to put, the timeline together, I was wondering, you were born in Edmonton, you grew up doing sports and academics and all this other fun stuff, and then somehow got into the world of theater or performing, but it seems like writing came before that. So writing happens, journalism school, but how did you discover the, I guess, confidence to be in front of people? Because I mean, it's really easy to write and be behind a monitor and behind paper, but then to be on stage and put yourself out there is totally different.
Well, I think, thank you for that. And thank you for knowing about me. Yeah, no, when I was, it's funny, I'm actually developing a show now for National Lampoon. I'm trying to develop a sketch show with that brand. And I remember as a part of it, my pitch to them was as a young man, I was obsessed with National Lampoon and the weird stories. And I thought my place in the world was going to be, if I could just write those weird letters or the stories in National Lampoon, that was my future. Cause as a young drunk punk, as we would say in Calgary. I didn't know what was my path. There was no, what was I going to do beyond the Tonight Show? And then I did find performance theater, Loose Moose Theater, which is improv.
Mhm.
And I went from a punk who dressed like in nurse's shoes and two weird scarves and like an earring to just a guy who wore army pants because I'd found my place. When I saw improv comedy, it felt like I was coming out of the closet. And I kind of think that I've worked every day since I first saw improv comedy live. And so I was terrified to do it, but I was more terrified not to do it.
Mm.
Because, when I was 18, uh, on my 18th birthday, I had a thing called Tequila Fest at my mom's house. And we broke every cup in her house, except one, there was a steel, urn that we just dented. And this story gets bad now. She had a heart attack And so she saw the house, wobbled to her boyfriend's house, and had a heart attack. So I spent a year having no money, having these worst jobs like framing houses, shoveling sand, working with weird Germans, making metal barns. And I felt like kind of like a loser. And so I decide. So when I found, and I thought that was going to be it for me. I was just going to be, working at Canada Dry, delivering pop or whatever. And I didn't know my place in the world. And I say this because I think there are people out there who are still just rattling around trying to find their place in the world. And so that's why I felt so lucky to have found a thing that reverberated in me. And for that reason, I had no I had no way to say no. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm I don't know. And I am kind of I don't know if I'm fearless. Maybe I'm just stupid. You know, Mark McKinney tells a story that like the first time we did something at Loose Moose Theater, we started writing our own material. It was a piece I was doing where I put my head in a bucket of paint and then I painted the stage. And it's like, that's a pretty funny idea in theory, but then what do you do when there's paint all over the stage? You just wrecked their stage. So it's like the impulse is there, and the follow through may may look nasty, but yeah. And the other thing I say too, which is, and for anyone out there who's thinking of doing this or whatever, I have failed so much. Like I've succeeded, but I've sold lots of pilots for the ones that didn't go and all that stuff. So for some reason, I perhaps, talk therapy, but bad childhood, drunk parents, came from Edmonton, working class, and Winnipeg, where, people's dogs were on chains and, they weren't that nice to their families. And so I think I had a little ember of anger and worry and sadness in me that when I found that I could communicate with my ideas, get my ideas into the world, that calmed me. And all
Mm.
I do is still now think about my ideas. Like I love my ideas. I have one. Um, I'm not crazy. I just lost my glasses, which is a song I did on our last reboot at Amazon. It was like I've had that idea in my head for 25 years and I never had a place for it, but I just loved that idea. So yes, I love being on stage the most, but an idea can keep me warm and keep me going.
That's amazing. I find it so funny that you mentioned, punk and family life. Uh, I spoke yesterday or a couple days ago with fascinating writer, Stephen Blush in New York, and he kind of grew up in the punk scene. Jewish guy, hardcore punk scene, worked with Black Flag and a bunch of cool bands. And by the end of the conversation, we kind of deduced that he was not rebelling, but he didn't have a home life that he felt comfortable in. So he went out and found punk rock to find that family that was suitable for him. And
Yeah.
then there he found a lot of his confidence because he was happy. Were you already a confident person, before you were doing punk rock, or
Oh no,
was it?
no, I was lost. Like I did powerlifting. I was a power lifter. I did,
Well,
snatch, clean and jerk. I competed
yeah.
and I was, a marathon runner and played football. And then I found drinking and rock music.
Mm,
But my thing is, and also I lived in Calgary and Edmonton in the 80s. And it was, you would get chased down the street. I would get chased down the street and called the F word. And, just because I, wore a pink shirt or whatever. And
yeah.
so I felt like there was a place for me in the world, but I didn't know where it was. I had a few friends who are a little bit older, who were in the Shadowy Man and Shadowy Planet, who are the kids in the whole band. So we weren't like everybody else, and that's all I knew because what everybody else was in Calgary and Edmonton were homophobic, misogynistic, lunks. And all my friends that I'm sought out over the years are like, I'm a feminine guy. I'm an emotional guy. And so I didn't know, I wasn't like those cowboys and I didn't know what I was like. And of course, in the old days, you didn't have the internet. You would just have to go to the used record store And if somebody was also buying a Jeff Beck record, you'd go, "Hey, who are you?" Like,
Yeah.
so you couldn't find each other. So I was lonely, and I did enjoy music was the most important thing, and I think it helped massage my anger.
Mm,
Um, but it was replaced almost in an instant with comedy because it has the same adrenaline.
yeah.
I think. And I still love music and I love music and it's a big part of my thing. I'm actually with this tour, I'm coming out with a record. But it's I didn't need music as much. But you're right. I loved the community of those people who were weirdos and
Yeah.
who were and punks are nice people. They're not, some of them maybe are a-holes. I never stage dove or anything. I just went to the shows. I didn't go to get into a fight. I'd get into a fight at a cowboy bar, never at a punk show,
Yeah.
and so I think there is a kindness, like, we don't know what society should be, but we know it isn't what you've described. And I think that's what all my comedy is about as well, which is saying that, mom and dad, like, I remember once when my girlfriend broke up with me, I said to my parents, "You're like cattle. Cattle I wouldn't even eat." Like, I just knew that the world was there was something wrong with the world, and, of course, I didn't know how much I loved the world. I didn't allow myself to love the world. Like, I love it ridiculously now, and so that was and that's part of, some of the themes in my show, which is I've had love for the world, but sometimes it's like my love has trouble leaving my body, like
Mhm.
expressing it. And, of course, as a comedian, you always wanna be funny. You don't wanna just say I love the world, like that's that's a little bit off.
Yeah.
But I've nurtured that as I've gotten older, It's important now to me.
It's funny because you mentioned stuff that, I grew up with as well, and I think I saw the main transition of with grunge, which was pre-grunge, you had this huge delineation between nerd, jock, geek, it's, ballet, art school, whatever, and then all of a sudden, with certain types of music or artistic movements, you realize, like you said, like, "Oh, you're picking up that same CD, you like this, maybe we're not so different," and then slowly over time, there was kind of a convergence of minds and interests. And like you, I'm an emotional guy. I have kids, I'm a dad, and I get teary eyed over things. And it took me a while to realize that not only was that acceptable, but that actually made me more of a strong person, recognizing my weaknesses and the things that did make me sensitive. Have you always been like that? Did it take being married and kids to, like, realize you were sensitive or dive into it more?
Well, you know, the elephant in the room, like, I was kind of an asshole, until I would say into my late 30s, really. And somehow I started to mellow and realize that being good to work with and being good to people was more valuable than just the great scene I wrote and you guys get out of my way because I'm brilliant and that's all that matters. And so, no, it took a long time for me to be softened by time and maybe by failure in a little bit or seeing myself through other people's eyes like, "Oh, no, you have to be the only thing that really, you wanna get your way and you wanna get your film made or all those things, but, um, I'm a joy to work with now." But you could certainly find people that go, like sometimes I'll see somebody and they'll go, "Hey, I was your second AD 30 years ago." I say, "I am sorry. I'm sorry I was such an asshole." So it took me some time. I had to let down my guard. No one was fighting me. I was fighting the world and maybe no one was fighting me back at a certain point because I was directing films and selling shows
Yeah.
and being the kids in the hall. So I was people's bosses. I wasn't an enfant terrible. I had to be nice to people. So it did take me a long time as it took the kids in the hall. I mean, Kevin and Dave were always nice. Mark and Scott and I are always a-holes. Um, but
Mhm.
it took me time and I'm really proud of that now. And I can't believe it took me so long, quite honestly.
So why do you think you were an asshole, to use your word? I'm not saying you were, but
Oh, I was.
was it fame fast? Was it, like, success fast? Was it stuff from childhood still?
I think childhood, the group I grew up in, the kids in the hall, and that included other people who couldn't stand it and left or came back and we worked with on other things.
Mhm.
We were fear biters. We were all people from terrible situations, and we would fight with each other. And we would put, I never bashed in a wall. I know other guys did. Like we didn't hit each other, but we would yell and scream and throw coffee. And we thought that was the way you did it. And because we told ourselves what we were doing was so important, you better get out of my way. And if you're not as good as me or as fast as me, just get out of my way. And I think it took me a long time, and maybe like even the love of like Kevin McDonald, who's a wonderful guy. It's
Mhm.
like, no, no, his idea is as good as mine. And so I I don't know, it just took me waking up, but I think I did it because I was wearing armor from my youth. And
Mhm.
then it's important, it's got to work. And like we got pretty famous, Calgary famous pretty quick. We started writing sketches, all like Dave's I Know, I wrote when I was 22 years old. We had them lined up around the block in the middle of the winter within 3 months. And then we moved to Toronto because I wanted to come see The Damned and the Buzzcocks. And we floundered for a while, which was actually very good for me. So that was the start of me going, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So I don't know.
There's a huge difference between confidence and self-awareness and being happy with oneself and loving oneself. Do you think that you're at a point in your life where you love yourself?
I do. And I don't think I'm battling the world in the same way. And, when even I look at the subject matter of my shows, I've done like 5 one-man shows now. And, they were a lot about me being a punk and, the beautiful day you beat up your dad and things like that. Um, and now my shows are about like they're about myself, of course, because I have an interesting and unique worldview. I know that I think of ideas that I don't think other people think of.
Yeah.
But I care way more about the world than what the world thinks of me now, if that makes sense. And I think I remember being backstage in Kitchener, Ontario, a few years ago, just looking at the weird posters of, you know, I think there was a Hip poster and a couple other bands that had played in this place, and I thought, a lot of people have come through here, and I won't always be doing this, but it's effing beautiful that I'm here. I'm gonna go on stage in a minute, and I'm gonna lay it down for 70 minutes, and I'm so happy I can do it. And so I do feel that, and it's corny, and I make fun of it in my show, #blessed. But
Mhm.
it is I feel I can't believe, like, I don't go, "Why does Kevin Hart sell out 18,000 seaters and I sell 400 seaters or 800?" Whatever I sell. Sometimes,
Yeah.
in Detroit, there's only 240. You gotta do more phoners. But I can't believe anybody wants to see me. So I do feel, and we did that. I remember the first Kids in the Hall tour, we were like, when we went back on the road in 2000 after the show had been off the air, all the tickets sold out like in a minute. And they were saying every show we could add, we would add. And we go, why do we have to add shows? What? To make more money? And it took our second tour, which wasn't very successful. And it was like, oh, there's lots of empty seats. And of course, the first time round is a big thing, and the second time round, maybe not. And it brought us together as a group.
Mhm.
It's like, why are we doing this? Are we doing this for a standing ovation and to have that big laugh when Gavin walks out or whatever? No, we're doing this for more. There's other reasons, and it isn't like applause or money, and because there is, you know, we're so I think that's I've learned it slowly though over my life.
Yeah, gratitude is huge, and like you, I learned it slowly too. I'm in my mid-40s, and I've had a really rough 2 years that included a divorce, loss of family members, death of a newborn daughter, just a ton of stuff. And one of my life coaches slash therapists said that, presence is the only thing that you can do to heal all this stuff. And it was around the same time I woke up and I saw a clip from Tony Robbins saying that he starts his day every day with gratitude, like a short gratitude session about what he's grateful for. And that completely rewires how we then work throughout the day with ourselves and each other. And so it sounds like you've been finding that same gratitude more and more, and you just feel blessed to have the life that you do.
Well, I do, and also, to that end, we all took a ride around COVID or after, who knows? We've been through a rough period, which is a lot of what my show talks about. Is why would I wake up in the morning and turn on CNN? What? And it's, it's we talk about, and I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old child, and it's like they're just scrolling on their phones. What are we taking in? And I know that's the grandpa in me. Like, well, why aren't we connecting with people? But and we do it ourselves. I think people my age or any age are as prone to just going down some weird wormhole than as kids. And yes, and that's the question, especially as if you go, for me, like, oh, I can do a show or not do a show. I have money. I'm not rich, but I don't have to, I can pay my mortgage. Like so why am I doing anything? And why don't I value days off? And why don't I value, do I really want to do that show that they offered me? I don't know. Do I like it? And so, because one of the most precious things we have is our time, is our days, is our energy. And yes, it's terrible. Like, and I hope you get to see my show, because it is really, I do talk about some of the stuff that you've been through. And I do have a story about, I had a friend who I lost. I talk about two people. I talk about Gord Downey, and I talk about my dad, his ashes going in my mouth. I talk about snorting a friend's ashes on New Year's Eve out at Massey Hall in Toronto, because her husband said, we should do interesting things with Kathleen's ashes. So I thought, well, I'm going to release them at Massey Hall because she has never got to play there. And I thought, no, I'm going to snort them so Kathleen can stay in me. And so there is something with that. And in my show, I tell a little story about Gord Downey and I, who is a great friend of mine, uh, sending emails. I don't know if you know who he is. He's was the singer of the Tragically Hip. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know who
Well,
Gord is.
okay.
You beat me to it. I was gonna bring that up because my second last guest, the last guest of last year, was Jake Gold, who was
Yeah.
obviously their manager. And I saw you. He's like, make sure you watch the documentary, and I did. And then you were
Yeah.
in the doc, and so I had to ask.
Yeah.
But
Well,
go ahead.
but also so I have a couple, we had emails. So Gordon and I were great friends. And then, my show's about Gallows humor. And for you too, I'm sure Gallows humor is going to get you through all the stuff that you went through. And that's my show. In the dark times, sometimes Gallows humor is all you got. It's not, and we don't use it to get away from the world and make fun of it. We use it to get through the world. And I'm sure that's what you're doing. But so I accused Gord of going on the road as a ploy for money, because I knew he wasn't sick, and of course he was. But it's like, it's using Gallows humor, and in a bigger way, like, I was even saying this to Kevin the other day, because we're going to San Francisco next week to do a brain candy thing and a couple other things. It's like, I'm I'm doing this because Gord Downey can't and Norm Macdonald can't, and I think it's important. Like, I get it now that the blues man kept going, and they didn't care. Of course, they always wanted to sell out places, but is it 20 people here or 200? They were just doing the blues. And so I do think that is part of uh for me, my responsibility. I got to just keep doing it, what because I'm still really good at it, not to be egotistical, you know.
Yeah. I think it's so important to be able to talk about these things. I mean, that is what ultimately will help the fabric of society get tighter, is by not avoiding the hard topics, and instead of making it a thing, just having a discussion without the need for an answer or a specific, direction coming out of a discussion. Just talk for the sake of talking. And if something feels right, then who are we to judge someone else for that? My mom, she was just visiting, and she thinks it's the weirdest thing in the world that my partner and I have our daughter's ashes in our bedroom. It's in a little heart-shaped box,
Right.
which for me is a whole separate story because Nirvana's song, and now there's a new meaning for the song. But I couldn't imagine not having her there, and I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine not having the daily reminder that, "Oh, yeah, she's not with us. Appreciate what you have," giving her a little kiss and starting my day. So I don't think snorting is, like, too far off of having
Right.
it in your bedroom.
Well, and it's the beautiful thing that people are still with you. And also, if you asked your daughter, would you want dad to mourn you and be a mopey drunk, or do you want him to go out into the world and be happy? She would be so, she doesn't, she wouldn't want you to, she, and, as what I say to my kids, like, if when I die, shoot me out of a cannon, that's fine. I know you want to do that. But like, don't hold on to it. I'm just this guy, and you'll remember me, but you'll be moving on. And like, I do think that's very important. It's easy for me to say I have not lost a child, I've had a couple close calls, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I could get through it like you have. I don't know if I could get out of bed. I I might just say, "Back up the gin truck to my house." But, we gotta keep going, so we do.
Yeah. Could you have envisioned any of your career when you were this kid playing hockey in Edmonton before you even started the school? And
No, I had no idea. Like, I remember I did a thing for CBC Radio many years ago. It's like what my alternative life would have been. And it's all like, you know, ha- knocking up the wrong Boston pizza waitress and having a warehouse job. Like, it did feel, because there was no example in Calgary or Edmonton of somebody who wasn't like a guy driving a truck
yeah.
or working in a store. So I didn't know that I could, that my ideas, I have a nice house, you can see. My ideas bought my house. My ideas and hard work, but and luck, but it's like, no, I had no idea. I just knew I had to do something. And like I've read books, like I think the Patti Smith, Just Kids, she felt like me. She was walking around trying to figure out who she was. And uh, same, who else was that? Someone else was like that. I read it's like they were walking around waiting for something to hit them. And I'm lucky because something hit me and something doesn't hit everybody, which is the hardest thing. I have kids who are trying to find themselves now at 19 and 21. What what part of the world did they fit in? It's hard. Like I didn't know that I could do a comedy show
Mhm.
or anything. I just kept doing it. So I was like, when I was a young guy, uh, my childhood, my home was so unhappy. I would go to sleep at night banging my head on my headboard. That's how I put myself to sleep. Clearly, I'm an undiagnosed ADHD or whatever, but that's pretty sad. And I think it's that fire and fury and almost, I you could call it mental health, um,
Mhm.
that, kept me going and got me got me to Toronto, got me to New York, got me to Saturday Night Live, all those things,
Yeah.
um, and it just gave me a sense of purpose, even if I was like a fire hose. I was just squirting, but I didn't know, there was no direction, there was no plan. I was just doing it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, having that joie de vivre or the raison d'être, is so different than having also the tenacity to keep pursuing it, especially in the face of rejection. And like you said, very few of us, I think, find both of those things. What one of the things I guess I'm hoping to inspire with these conversations is that we're all the same. You too can be in this spot. You too will go through these same horrible things that we endure, and you can come out the other side. It's just how you choose to do it. Do you have any tools that you do or that you have taught your daughters in order to be able to skip some of the hardships that you did?
Well, I I I I keep saying, like, I'm not about my accomplishments, and I don't I have a pretty cool resume, in some ways, and just because I got to work with Trailer Park Boys and all the people but it's like, they see how hard daddy works and how much he's failed, and you know, and I have friends who are huge, like a couple friends who are so rich and have such power in the industry. I don't think they're happier than me. I really don't. And I can kind of look at that and go, it's just about my work. And of course we all want our things to be successful and we hate it when a really good TV show like Young Drunk Punk doesn't get a second season, but you just move on. And I think if anything, I've modeled resilience for my kids.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know why, but when you were talking about your kids earlier, I just remembered this story I read. I guess pre-pandemic, and it was just when I started to have my first kid, and it was like 18 summers. I don't know if you heard of this. You only have 18 summers with your kids, and then they kind
Right.
of like are off
Yep.
and out. And that time is so precious and fleeting that again, staying present, focusing on what's important is key. And I think that the sooner people can find happiness with themselves, the sooner that they can appreciate things, enjoy things, and somehow time slows down. When you're
Yeah,
happy, and you're just having conversations with cool people
yeah.
about, your careers and stuff, then it's not as go, go, go rat race. Let me let me go back for a second. So I'm curious about the journalism. You're, playing hockey and now like weightlifting that you said, or powerlifting and family life. At what point did you say like, I want to pick up a pen and start getting my ideas out? And tell me about like how that happened.
Well, I knew that being funny was a chemical thing. I remember writing a story when I was in grade 3. The teacher wanted a story about the first snow, and I wrote a story about the first snow that ever came, from the point of view of dinosaurs who were realizing that that the world was changing and that they were that they were going to go extinct. And I remember the teacher going, "How did you think of that?" And I think something like that. And I also have the same memory as the teacher said. Um, I told you umpteen times. I said, "Yeah, but you never told me how many umpteen is." And everybody laughed. And so I remember those two things as, yeah, I wanna write down my ideas. I wanna be funny, but I also wanna start writing down my ideas, and I did, and I one of the things I do in my show now, I have about 40 of these bad boys, maybe 60. These are these little books that I bought at the bookstore. See, and all the girls I never phoned back, or all their numbers and names are in there. And they're all my ideas that I've been carrying around since I was 18, and I would take them to a bar, to a place, and I would always write down stuff. And so now, when I go on the road, every show I take a different one, and I open it up, and I read the weird crap that's in my head that I had when I was that young. So I've always been a person who's collected my ideas, and it's interesting to read these as because they don't age in a way. Like I'm still have that same point of view comedically or whatever that is. So I've always been a collector. I think it's very important, one's ideas. Like, what am I thinking? And you write it down.
Mhm. That's fascinating. So, I mean, for me, that helps with the timeline because I can see you then, saying I want to write. Your school choice goes to journalism from business. Then you're with the audience. You meet Mark, and then all of a sudden, things take off from there. Um, Humor, is it something that is still for you to escape the horrors of the past, or has it morphed over time into something else?
I think it's just no, I don't think I think it just reverberates who we are.
Mm.
Like I have a song that popped into my head that's on my record in my show, called "Sobriety's Made Me Boring and Grumpy and a Little Bit Mean," and I sing it, and people like it's something for people because it's like it's a topic we're all having. So I think it's more a way to just to go, oh my God, this world, it's on fire right now, but we're
Yeah.
okay. This theater isn't going down tonight, and we're here. We're here, we have clothes on, we're like so I do think it's something it's kind of a celebration now for me to be able to just talk about stuff and just have other people talk about stuff. I have a thing in my show, and I know because I know you talked a little bit about mental health in our thing. I have a
Mhm.
thing in my show, and I don't usually like to tell people because it's I don't wanna spoil it, but it's like I I was working with a group of writers in this room on a TV show I'm doing that's going to be out next year, called Bulges. It They were really nervous, and then the next day I took 5 stuffies from my kids' rooms and put them in their chairs, and they all had different stuffies, and they all loved their stuffies, and it was kind of a joke, but it actually worked. And then so when I went to teach a class at my niece's, she's a teenager at her theater workshop. I took stuffies and I said to the girls there, I say, sometimes I take stuffies. And they started jumping up in the air, like almost crying. They were so excited and they all use these stuffies. So what I do now is I lend the audience stuffies at my show. And I when when things get a little grim, I say, okay, we're gonna maybe need a stuffy or two. And I say to people, it varies from night to night, of course, and I go like, who's had a bad year? And everybody's hand goes up, and it's like, who needs a stuffy? And so they hold on to the stuffies and then they bring them back at the end of the show. But there's something like we need a stuffy, and I don't even know what it means, why it's profound, but people go nuts, and I've had like people go, "Oh, yeah, it was. I saw your. I did a show a couple months ago. Oh, it was the anniversary of my sister's death, and my God, having that stuffy was so beautiful." And
Mhm.
like it's like, and it's not always that profound, but it's like we need to give each other stuffies right now, and that's a lot of my mission. And to also go, hey, like I love that everybody's cool enough at a Bruce McCulloch show to go, I'm having a bad year too. Like not like, oh no, everything's cool. Got some irons in the fire, and like, yeah, no, we need each other, and I think that's why I do that.
I think that's a good indicator of who you are and where you are in your life, though, because you are with your energy in that room, whether it's 200 people, 1,000 people, creating a safe space where these people feel comfortable saying that. And that's a beautiful thing because it doesn't happen easily.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna say some crazy, dark, and dirty stuff, but that doesn't negate, beauty, um, there's another song on my record that I do with Kevin called, "Life is Amazing, but it's also kinda boring too." Like,
Uh,
'cause both things are true. We need each other to get through the hardships and the tedium and celebrate each other, but it's like it's a bunch of things, you know?
yeah. Well, there's a marketing and merchandising plan for you there with you having your own stuffy before the shows. I think that, you got to look into that.
Oh, it's trust me, the stuffies have been ordered. It's actually, and I will send you my record. It'll be done in a month or so. The cover is a stuffy, is
That's
a
awesome.
prugly stuffy. Yeah.
Two of my kids grabbed stuffies this morning for the drive to school. I had no idea why, but I guess they were anticipating this interview.
That's
So
great.
let me ask you a couple more questions. I know that you said you got a hard stop, but you mentioned Gord, you mentioned the hip. Like I mentioned, I spoke with Jake. I watched that documentary, and it's funny how music changes once you hear these stories. And I didn't know that you and Gord were friends. You're in that documentary. Was that at all difficult for you, or was it more of a uh, catharsis being able to talk about him in the life and the friendship you guys had?
Well, it's been both. Like I used to do I used to do 25 minutes about Gord in my show, and at first I did it. Like, people would be dripping tears, like, who knew like, I go to Edmonton, people would be out of their minds, and then I found it sort of a burden to be doing it every night because it was too much on me, and so I retired it, and then now I just do a little bit, and it's more a celebration of him, and it feels right, um, and I'm more celebrating him because it's been long enough now that it's not he's also Gord, but he's also all the pets we've lost and all the people we've lost in a way. He's him, of course, but he's also symbolic of that we have to keep going, and it's the ever flowing river of humanity that we're all part of. So I find there's a little sometimes, but I find it's important to do, and I'm mostly on the sunny side of it. I'm not like wallowing in it. And some of the biggest laughs are me saying weird stuff to him in the middle of the night. So it's
Yeah.
not, it's my thesis that we need gallows humor and humor gets us through. And I have to prove it by getting some laughs talking about this dark stuff.
That's fair. I mean, I think honoring our individual feelings when these things happen is so important, whatever way it happens. I don't think I've ever shared this before, but um, there was a guy in the Canadian music industry. His name was John Box. He was over at Universal Music Canada, and he was such a lovely guy. And I mean, I wasn't good friends with him, but we worked together when I was at BlackBerry, and we hung out a few times. And I was always inspired by what he was doing, who he was working with, how well spoken about he was with all the musicians and people within the industry. And unfortunately, he passed away. I don't know the details whether he took his life or it was something else. But even though we weren't close, for some reason, for several months afterwards, uh, there was a handful of times where I had the urge to call him. So I would call his phone knowing no one would answer before it was
Right.
discontinued and just leave him a voicemail, talking to
Right.
him as if he was still alive because that's what felt right to me, and that's how I was, I guess, honoring him in some ways.
Well, it's fascinating because I think, and that's part of one of the things in my themes, which is, and I'm lucky for me because I get to hear it from people. Um, we affect people that we've never met, and I think that's really important. And some of the people we have met, we we don't know how much we affected them. And people will say, "You have no idea that when I saw that thing, and I didn't know I was queer yet." And I couldn't talk to my dad, but we could talk. But found a way to talk to my dad, or whatever. It's like 40 years later, and there's so I think that's the march that we know that our positive, it's the thing on the boating thing that you are responsible for your own wake. If you make a wave and topple over someone's boat, you did it. But also, if you send out nice waves, and if you send out nice ideas that are weird or are original or given in love or whatever they are, then that they can affect people too. And I know that, like Gord's poetry, his nomenclature, um, nothing uglier than a man hitting his stride. Like that's a line he wrote, which I think about all the time. It's like it punctuates, and I know that some of our stuff, the weird things that we've said, are part of people's lexicon. It isn't just like they're repeating "I'm crushing your head," but there's something more going on, I think.
I got one more question, and then we'll wrap up with you and some final thoughts. You mentioned Norm Macdonald. I wanted to ask about music initially, but I'm going to change my question a little bit. Norm Macdonald made me think of Billy Madison, which made me think of Adam Sandler, and then obviously the trajectory that he's had later in his life and career. Also, how a lot of comedians, regardless of politics, seem to stay friends and communicate. Um, have you ever thought of doing anything that is specifically serious? I mean, and I don't mean serious in terms of quality or the thought behind it, but I mean in terms of the tone. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Schitt's Creek, Trailer Park Boys, most of what you do is steeped in humor.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought of removing that and doing stuff that's just deep?
I have. I wrote a piece that I didn't quite haven't quite finished or sold, uh, which is like Stay for Breakfast. A guy has a one night stand with a woman, and she goes out for pancake mix in the morning and dies, and then he's left with this weird little kid, and he basically becomes his parent in a way. And uh, so sometimes it's too hard for me, some of that material, to stay in that. And I don't know. I think people. I don't know. I think some of my funniest stuff is still, someone stopped me the other day. I did this piece called "Each Day We Work." Each day we work in silence. Day we work in uh, darkness. What do you go home to? My rooster. What do you go home to? And somebody stopped me and said, "That is the most poetic, beautiful meditation on life. I don't know why there's so many laughs in it." I said, "Well, because we did
Yeah.
it in front of an audience." And so I think there's enough serious stuff in my thing. I don't have to do like a real serious thing that because I think there's enough serious weird stuff. A guy who's obsessed with his pen, or like all I'm doing is creating characters who are in over their heads. You know,
Mm.
I'm doing I have a bit of a mustache. I'm doing a buffoon tomorrow who falls through the ice, trying to teach the Inuit people how to be survivalist, as if they need teaching. So all I do is create weird people who are trying to find their place in this world. So yeah,
That,
I guess
that's
humor is my thing.
And that's okay. I by no means was not trying to like insinuate anything. In fact, you just made me think of something, which is that comedy, whether it's Chappelle or Bruce, it doesn't matter who. The delivery could be comedic, but the content, the undertone can be serious. It's about reading through the lines and hearing the writing, the content.
Without question, like one of the biggest, I shouldn't do it because people will be seeing my show. One of the biggest laughs in my show is I say, ever get so lonely that you go to the dentist just to be touched? And that's a pretty sad meditation on us, but boy, do people laugh. And so I feel like I can do both. I mean, a lot of people can do both, but that's my specialty. You know, I can do a funny story about a bad weekend at a motel, but I like that. That is what I want. That's a dart. That's who we are. And so, um, yeah, but why would that get a laugh? I don't know. because it's real. It's true or something. I don't know.
Yeah. All you can do is keep going. I mean, your career speaks for itself, and you know you're such a talented individual. I really appreciate your time and giving me the as you said the amount of time that you have. Right, it's our number one asset. So thank you for sharing. I always like to end with an over to you. You tell me or tell the audience something that is super important, whether it is how to keep going or how to stay positive. What is the final word?
Well, I think we just keep going, and I mean, it seems so simple. When I look at someone like you, and I know that you've been through a couple of challenges that I haven't been through. It's like we just keep going, and it's like all we have is each other. We have ourselves, and we have each other. And I do think that when you sit, we talk about mental health as kind of an umbrella, and it's kind of a dumb umbrella now, but it's also important. Which is like that means tell people that you're not okay, or tell people that you need a day off, or tell people that they said hurt you, or that you're alone, or you're lonely, or whatever. But I do feel more hope now than pessimism. I feel like we have each other, and like when the audience breathes with me, like it just gives me hope that we're going to be okay.